Hi, Dr. Ruby.
Hi, Stacy. How are you?
Good, good. How are you? Glad to be here with you.
Thank you, me as well. I want to just say hello to all of our watchers and to everyone out there who chose to come and listen to this conversation. We just want to thank you, and we hope that you will ask lots of questions and learn things here today.
I also want to welcome everyone. Very glad to be with you here today, and thanks for spending your time with us. And I'm looking forward to our exchange and getting to kind of discover and create together, and to be with you all. We're going to introduce ourselves first. And then we're going to set up our section where Dr. Ruby will go first and talk about her work and give us lead a meditation. And then I'll talk about my work and lead a practice, and then we'll get to more of the Q&A in the latter part of the presentation. So I'm Staci Haines, and I have been in this world of embodied transformation and somatics for going on 26 years. And part of really what captured my attention is how depthful embodied transformation is, and at the same time, how pragmatic. And in some ways, it reminds us, which is very countercultural, but it reminds us that, we're live organisms and we too are nature. So in the other part of my life, although they're integrated now, I've been doing social change and social movement work. I worked with Generation 5, whose mission is to end the sexual abuse of children within 5 generations. And then for the last 15 years with Generative Somatics, which is bringing all this work to social and climate justice movements. And then I am the happy queer stepmom to 3 who are all grown, but that's been and is a rich part of my life as well. Dr. Ruby, can I hand it to you?
Sure. My name is Dr. Ruby Gibson, and I'm the executive director and founder of Freedom Lodge. We're a nonprofit group in Rapid City, South Dakota. And we've been funded to work with our Native American relatives across the United States. And so I am the executive director and created this organization in order to help with the historical trauma patterns that have erupted in our Indigenous communities after many, many years of ethnocide and genocide. So I'm going to be speaking more specifically regarding how that historical trauma recovery looks, and how to start applying it to your life if you have historical trauma. I also developed a modality called somatic archaeology, which is about unearthing history in the body. So we'll be talking about that as well. I invite you to, join us and listen and do your best to participate in the meditations. Thank you again for being here. It's a pleasure to share with you. Many, many years ago, I was doing healing work and began to recognize that people were carrying things inside their body, and those things that they were carrying didn't necessarily belong to them. And we began the process of somatic exploration, looking for what was underneath the pain or the discomfort or the disease, what was causing some kind of emotional holding or pattern that had erupted. And we know for every physical symptom, there's an emotional counterpart. So we help our clients and our colleagues to work through the emotions that are underneath the somatic process that's going on. And it allows for deeper healing, for clearing, and we have an entire system that was developed. We practice this at at Freedom Lodge in Rapid City, and we also train people in historical trauma recovery from across the United States. So we train other tribal members to bring this work and historical trauma recovery to their communities to provide services there. And so we're also developing trainers who can go out and facilitate this process. And we're in the middle of doing research on somatic archaeology so it can become a best practice. So we've been very busy over many, many years putting this work together, and it's been fascinating. It's been so effective, and we've helped hundreds and hundreds of people, really all around the world. But here in the United States, our indigenous populations need help, and I'm part Native and part Mediterranean, so I am able to bring these healing modalities into our communities and have a really big impact. So that's one of the things that I do. It's my primary job. I also travel around the world and teach people in different countries how to work through cultural traumas that have impacted them, previous wars, grief, environmental issues that have created change or loss. So it's really a fascinating process, and I'm going to just tell you a little bit about it. Okay, so you see here, this is an indigenous generational timeline. So one generation consists of 3 generations, because in our indigenous world, we look at it through grandfather, father, grandson, or grandmother, daughter, granddaughter. And typically there's about 25 years of age in a generation. If we multiply that times 3, we get 75 years. And then if we take 75 years and multiply it times 7 generations, it equates to 525 years. And Columbus landed and invaded the United States, or Turtle Island, I'll call it, in 1492. Exactly 525 years before the 8th generation that's coming next. And I did not plan this. I just kind of started thinking of the numbers, and it came together in this way. So if we look at a 7-generation timeline, what we're looking at is the impact genetically, epigenetically, historically. We look at wars, at diseases, at issues, all the things, the loss, the being, put on reservations, the Great Indian Wars, and all of that. So this is a very compacted timeline that I put together just to help look at the impact of the genocide of our Native American relatives. So the first is Innocence, 1492 to 1567, and it's really that time when non-Native peoples were coming into the United States. They were the black robes and the white faces. They were different people. And the second generation, it was more about the lies and the legacies that came from those people and how they impacted the tribal nations. And then the next one is about slavery and servitude and being bound and losing one's freedom. And This was between 1792, and the Great Indian Wars were the retaliation for those first three steps, because people are survivalist at heart, and they will do everything they can in order to save their families, their community, their lands, their homes. Everyone's like that. But in the case of our Native American relatives, the Great Indian Wars had a huge impact, and they eventually lost. So, from there we go to the integration, to the drugs and alcohol, to the misuse of power, and people being saddled with all sorts of diseases and behavioral issues, anxiety, depression. There's many things that come with historical trauma when it's built up over so many years, so many generations. And so that's what we do. We look back 7 generations and we look forward 7 generations toward the next generation, which is the 8th. It is the kind of the 8th fire, as we call it, and it is about sovereignty, recovery, and sobriety. So that's our goal at Freedom Lodge, is the future of Native wellness, and the work that I do revolves around that. And we work only in a somatic way in order to create the transformation that our communities so greatly need. And, like in Pine Ridge, which is nearby where I live, the life expectancy is about 49 years old. It's one of the poorest, I think the poorest county in the United States. And, we have so many issues going on. So I hope that you can, keep that in your heart. There's a lot of pain and suffering that exists there. A lot of joy and laughter too, but it's a difficult place. So from there, when we practice somatic archaeology fits on a medicine wheel. And the medicine wheel is the oldest symbol of all time. And it could be a clock, it could be a compass, it could be the beginning and the end of a project, but everything comes full circle eventually, like the seasons or the rising and setting of the sun. Everything has a cycle. And so when we look at the cycle of recovery, we put together something I call the somatic archaeology wheel of transformation. So we start in the center of the wheel, and the wheel is all about awareness and the I notice. So we ask people to notice, like, what's happening in your body? What do you feel? And then we go, when they're able to discern that, we go to the west of the wheel, which is about the physical. Describe that to me. How does it feel in your body? And our body doesn't talk in language, so it talks in sensation. So we're looking for sensations that we can then translate into language. And once someone is able to identify where that's being held, what happens is the emotional body kicks in and it draws forward whatever emotion is at the source of that somatic sensation. And when the emotion moves, it creates a transformative experience that will send someone straight up the wheel to the north, which is about the mind and the mental body and interpreting what's going on. Because most people go from I notice to I interpret, rather than going and getting information from their body or from their emotional body. But now that they have this information, they can interpret it and then go around to the east, which is the spiritual aspect of ourselves. And the step there is I reconcile. And then we take that reconciliation right to the center of the wheel. And again, we notice what's happening now. And so that's one session of somatic archaeology. I notice, I sense, I feel, I interpret, I reconcile. And then back to center. And then we'll do another session, maybe a week down the road or something. There's a figure 8 in there that is has a lot of meaning. The whole thing is symbolic, and so in our trainings we go over it and we show people actually how to take these steps and the ways in which someone can uncover not only the suffering that they've experienced historically, but maybe what their parents have been through, or their grandparents, or their great-grandparents. Being able to open to that lineage creates change. I mean, we don't always recognize it, but we stand at the apex of 7 generations behind us and 7 generations ahead. And we're right here in the middle. That position gives us a lot of power, because all the change that we choose to create, all the historical issues that we tend to choose to resolve or reconcile, also trickles down toward our ancestors and toward those yet to come in our ancestry. And it creates a healing wave. I've seen it over and over again, where families start to heal, even if there's just one person in that family who chooses to start reconciling the pain or the suffering or the issues inside of them. We're all biological beings, and that's just how it works. So I have a book called My Body, My Earth, The Practice of Somatic Archaeology. And you can purchase that. You can, it's a good, concise book. It'll give you a lot of insight into the work. We also have that book in Spanish. You can go to freedomlodge.org and see, you can purchase those there if you're interested. So that's what I've been up to for the past, 35, 40 years, is developing this and bringing it to our communities. So thank you very much for listening. And I hope that inspires you, or in some way incites you to look at your own history and your own past and how that's shaped who you are today. Oh. Staci, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't have time to do my practice, but that's okay. We'll do it at the end.
That sounds good. Thank you so much. Thank you for all your years of work, and also thank you for your work, your model, and that apex of 7 generations is just such a it's so powerful to think about what's possible then in our lifetimes right now, kind of the gift and the opportunity that we all have, huh?
It's pretty amazing. I mean, we're walking libraries. We have so much information inside of us.
Yeah.
You might as well access it. So.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. Thank you too. Just I'll talk a little bit about our approach to somatics and embodied healing and transformation. But I remember being in a somatic bodywork session where I was doing my own healing, and there was a place that I knew what was coming out of my body was my maternal grandmother's. And I was like, oh, this isn't mine, but that's getting to process and complete through me because I'm here. So I so relate to what you're saying. And I've seen it so many times in the somatic processes too. But I really appreciate that you have an image and a model around it.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone. I'm just going to talk a little bit too about also embodied transformation and somatic healing, just coming through a different doorway, just coming through a different model. And first, I want to talk about the word transformation tends to get used a lot, and I just want to share how we define it. That we know we've transformed when our actions and our way of being, right, when our way of relating aligns with our vision and our values, even when we're under pressure. And what we really see is under stress, pressure of what's happening in our personal lives, our communities, or the pressures of our social conditions. It's really under those pressures when kind of the survival strategies that we've learned in this lifetime and across generations, when those survival strategies come and act out of us. And then maybe later on, we're like, oh, why did I do that? Or why did I act like that? So really, when we're looking at embodied transformation, we're looking at really aligning, like doing the somatic transformation, the excavation work that Dr. Ruby talked about, to align our way of being and our actions and our relating with our vision and our values. And something that I notice about, any of us who are really trained by Western culture and trained in Western education, there's a default way of thinking that we inherited really from Descartes, which is this idea that thinking is paramount, that the most important thing to do is, thinking and rationality is somehow the norm and somehow better. And of course, we know that is not true and is creating a mass of personal and collective problems. And what I find amazing about returning to the body, and like Dr. Ruby said, returning to sensations and even emotions are happening in and through the body. And what we would really say is the body and self are inseparable. They're separable when we die, but when we're living, the aliveness moving through us, that the self and the body are inseparable. The body is not an object, right? This is a beautiful living organism with a huge tale of evolutionary wisdom. But we really find that when we start returning to the body and sensations and being able to feel the life inside of us, that what's there is also is like a self-harmonizing force or an impulse to heal. Now, in the body is also habit and survival strategies. So sometimes it can feel like a contradiction of like, which thing am I sensing and feeling? But I see again and again, there's a deep impulse toward reharmonizing, toward healing, or like Dr. Ruby said, reconciling, that really happens through the body, that feels preloaded in our biology and organism. So I just want to show one model that we use about what are the components of embodied transformation. I won't keep this up too long, but I just want to give a sense of the different pieces in this approach. So you'll see in the middle that circle called somatic awareness, beginning to sense and feel and notice what we might call the language of the body. Right? Like listening like there's information, feeling like there's wisdom, and also then noticing patterns and contractions. So that can happen all through the felt senses. And again, eventually we're bringing the sensing, the emotions and the thinking, and then the animating force or spirit all back into alignment with each other instead of being at odds. Another part of this work is somatic practice, and we'll do a little practice in a moment, but there's a phrase that we use, which is we are what we practice, right? We become what we practice. We're always practicing something. Is what we're practicing aligned with what we long for or aligned with what we most care about, right? So we could just say, I care about loving others. Do I have a practice of loving? Or I care about choosing my response instead of reacting, right? So we really look at practices. What are the practices? Even the practice of breath. Am I mostly breathing in my upper chest, or can I breathe down into my belly in a consistent way? So there's a lot of practices. Like, what are practices help us build new skills? right? Practices help us have new choices and new options. So we work a lot with embodied practice. Then that orange circle of somatic opening is really maybe our word for the, Dr. Ruby, what you called archaeology. It's really looking where there's holding and patterns of survival that are lodged in our tissues, right, all the way into our organs. And being able to work with and loosen and let those process through the emotions, through the sensations, sometimes through shaking and sweating, so that the knot gets freed up in the body. It's like the body, you could think of it as the deepest place of holding. And often we try to operate on top of that. And of course, that gives us less and less energy by which to live. So really that healing process frees up memory, emotions, history in your own life or before. So that somatic opening process is very essential. And then the last two pieces here, and this feels important, I think that a lot of somatics, again, that comes through the West can end up being very, very individualized, or not remember that we are shaped by our social conditions. Again, Dr. Ruby, I thought your timeline was just very profound. You know, what happened 500 years ago still shapes us today. You know, I look at the racial justice uprisings last summer and Black Lives Matter. That is a reconciliation, still a collective shaping from chattel slavery. And we are still in the process of coming to wholeness, healing, equity. And that means all of us, we're all shaped by that. So social conditions, we're shaped by them. We even ingest them and embody them when we don't agree with them. So my values might be one way toward equity and liberation, right, for all beings. But then what's embodied in me might be more of an embodiment of separation or wounding that I'm acting out of, or privilege that I'm acting out of. So that integrating social conditions and really understanding that we're shaped by them, just like we can help change them. They live deep in our tissues. Yeah. And then the last thing, and we don't need to bring back up the slide, it's okay, is landscape and spirit. And it's just that reminder that we are deeply in relationship with land, even when we live in urban environments, right? Everything we've ever had to drink or eat actually comes from the earth. And then we are surrounded on this sphere of the earth. We are surrounded by this massive, ever-expanding universe. We all have different names for spirit, so please call it what you want to, but that is a positive support and force in healing. There's lots of research around resilience, and again in different research pieces, land and relationship to the mystery or spirit are deep spaces of resilience for us as human beings, even when we might come from cultures that got cut off from land in these last, let's say, 7 generations. Yeah. Okay. So I wanna say just a few more words about trauma and trauma healing. One of the ways we understand trauma and how it's happening in our somas is that it sends us into these very natural and understandable survival strategies. Most everyone has heard of the fight-flight response. We'll really explore fight, flight, freeze, appease, and dissociate. And those come with our biological wisdom. We don't have to learn how to do that. And they actually happen very, very quickly in our mind body. It's not like we think through, like, I think I'll have a freeze response now, right? Something much deeper and quicker in us, which we can talk about as a lot of things, but I'll just leave it there, decides what's going to best help us survive. And then what's tricky about trauma is that generalizes in our somas, in our thinking, in our feeling, in our tissues, and then it doesn't take in new information. So those survival strategies, something about the context or conditions could have gotten safer or more connected, but we'll keep doing that survival reaction until it gets attended to and worked through the soma. Most of us with traumatic experiences don't get supported through the trauma the moment after it happens. And again, as Dr. Ruby laid out so beautifully, often that trauma is generation after generation after generation, not with enough resource and support collectively to actually process it through and set it down and come into current time and current relatedness. So because it generalizes a survival strategy and then doesn't take in new information until we purposefully work with it and heal it, it is why we have things like what we call PTSD or intergenerational traumas. There's both a beautiful and a heartbreaking piece of science. It was a book written maybe 15 years ago called Genome. It was a mapping of the human genome. And there's a stress sequence that can get turned on inside of us when we're threatened. And what they found is that stress sequence gets turned on. It can actually get turned back off with embodied approaches, whether that's somatic healing or ceremony, right, with embodied approaches. But what they find is in the birthing mother, if the stress sequence is turned on, it's also turned on in the newborn infant, right? So it helps us just, to me, take very beautifully and seriously the work of healing and the work of social justice and social change. So many of our harms are because of our broader social conditions, right? Are because of colonization and slavery, are because of white supremacy or patriarchy that are enforced through violence, right? Or that are enforced through co-optation. So even like very individual traumas, like I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse. That's part of my very intimate trauma that I work with and heal. And even I look at that and I look at the generational aspects of that. And then I look at all the social conditions, that train people into then harming children in that way. At this point, I don't think that anything is purely personal anymore, that there's really this collective process. So in this work, we bring a lot of this work to social justice and climate justice leaders, really going, how can we heal to then lead social change in a different way? And of course, also bring it to practitioners and healers, both so we can be in different practices ourselves, and then that folks can, have more and more effective ways to help others really process through and leave behind and metabolize somatically, both personal, social, and intergenerational traumas. So with that, I just want to invite us into, I want to say one more thing, then invite us into a practice. So the last thing I want to say in understanding embodied transformation is we really look at there being these 3 inherent needs that we all have. And they're kind of built in again to the biology. And they're the need for safety, the need for belonging or loving and being loved, right? Being a part of, and then the need for dignity or worth. And then of course we need resources, right? All the resources of clean water, clean food, schooling, housing, right? Not having those or poverty causes trauma in all these other areas. So when we look at safety, belonging, and dignity, what trauma does, again, many different types, but what trauma does is kind of put those at odds with each other. Like I can have a survival strategy that's trying to keep me or the people that I relate to safe, but inside of that, give up a sense of belonging and isolate, or try to belong and not lose or be left and give up my dignity to be able to do that. So safety, belonging, and dignity can become at odds inside of us. But again, through the healing process, we're helping to recohere those so those can work together. And again, we can be more in choice, less in reaction, of course, decrease pain and suffering and increase emotional well-being and interdependence, and then keep lining up again our actions with our broader purpose, right? For our lives and really for the well-being and the justice of all lives. So, given all of that, a little bit about my approach and our approach, just want to invite us into a very simple practice. It won't take us long, And you can either practice seated or practice standing. I'm going to go ahead and stand up, but either way, whatever works best for your body. You could even lay down if you want to. But move myself here. It's a very simple centering practice. And sorry, let me make sure my volume is up. It's a very simple centering practice. And it's almost like having a baseline inside of ourselves and inside of our bodies to come back to over and over again. So I'm going to invite everyone, either seated or standing, to bring your attention into your sensations or into your aliveness. So you might notice it's like coming from the thinking self into the feeling self. And you might notice temperatures, places you're cooler or warmer. You might notice places where you feel more relaxed or more pressure inside your body, inside yourself. You might also notice places where you feel movement or tingling or your heart beating. But I want to invite you to just come into your feeling and into your sensing, right? We're these alive, dynamic organisms, and I think sometimes we forget that. So this is remembering it. So feeling and sensing, and then let's bring our breath and our attention all the way down just below your belly button. You can put a hand on your belly if that helps. You can bring your breath all the way down there. Bring your attention down there. And in our practices, we call this our center, right? It's our center of gravity when we're standing. So bring your touch, bring your breath, bring your attention there, and then we're going to center in 4 directions. And this really helps us. It's a practice, again, to build a baseline, a resourceful baseline of really being present and open and connected. So from center, the first direction is length. Let's center in length. And that means settling down into our bodies, into gravity, and then lengthening at the same time. So just notice that in your own body. Let some more weight come into your hips and feet, and then lengthening, almost like you could make more space in your spine. And filling out your full length. It's like balancing in length, top and bottom. And then inside of length, we're also practicing really centering inside of dignity, right? Your own dignity, the dignity of all life. And just practicing that. Yeah. Second dimension is width. So again, from the center line, just let yourself widen out across your collarbone, across your waist, across your legs, just widening out. There's so many things about trauma and depression that have us shrink up or shrink into ourselves or pop out of ourselves. This is like inviting ourselves back home and then widening out left and right, filling ourselves back in or kind of unfurling. And with this dimension, we think about as the relational space, right? We can let ourselves out, let other people in, have centered boundaries when we need to, right? But with this whole space of being in the world and relating. So centered in length, then centered in width, and next we're going to center back to front in depth. So again, let your attention just come to your back body. You might feel the space behind your heart. You might feel your glutes. You might feel your heels or the back of your head. Just noticing the back of your body. And we really consider that what's behind us is our ancestors. What's behind us is 300 billion years of the evolution of life on this planet. And all of our life experiences. So we can in some ways rest into our back and then come through our body, so into those internal, beautiful, dark spaces, right? Heart, your guts, all that blood moving around in the body, and also just that space of internal landscape. So making more space in your insides all the way to the front side. Right, the front, we're just facing into what is and also our intentions for the future. So this good balance back and front, balance side to side, balance up and down, and then just bring all of those together. Right, so we're centered in our length, our width, our depth through our feeling, right? Through our feeling self. And then the last thing we always center on is really our purpose or our calling. Yeah. Or you can think about it as who and what do you love? So we want to organize ourselves or center ourselves on our purpose or what's important to us. So just let that come to body, let that come to mind, and then let what you care about, let your purpose also shape you. All right, so it's a simple baseline practice. You can do this 5 times a day. You can do it 20 times a day if you want, but at least once a day it's great to get in the repetitions of getting present, open, connected, and on purpose. All right, if you're standing, come ahead and sit again. And with that, I just want to hand it back to Ruby.
That was really nice. Thank you, Staci.
Welcome.
It looks like we have about 15 minutes left. I don't know if I really want to do another practice on top of that, but we can open it up for questions and see.
Let's do that. That'd be good. That'd be good. Let's hear some questions, and then I think I bet we still have time for a practice at the end. And see how it goes. Jesse, can you help us? Like, first of all, we just want to invite people if you'd like to put questions in the chat, and then Jesse's going to help us out and kind of bring questions forward.
Great. So our question is, as we are part of a living organism that is being grievously wounded, how do we relate to that trauma?
I can talk a little bit about that. You know, we're all children of the earth, and we each inside of ourselves have a personal relationship with Grandmother Earth. We have a heart relationship, and we have a physical relationship because Gaia, or Mother Earth, or however you want to refer to her, is struggling a lot. And so, you know, the times that I've connected and been out on the land, it has, the earth has told me just to pray, to like honor our mother almost as if she's on her deathbed. And I hate to say that, but Grandmother Earth, or Mother Earth, has a grandmother and a grandmother and her own lineage. And so all of those grandmothers are really upset. They're pretty pissed off, and their job is to help her fight and help her, you know, survive through this. So she's going through the same survival process that I think most human beings are. We're not that far away, but the information that I receive is to help people to remedy the burdens inside of themselves. Because as we do that, that lightens the load for Mother Earth. And we're either more sensitive to Mother Earth, we're more connected to her, we're more honoring. You know, it's not something we individually can fix, but we can hold a place of prayer. We can create a mesa or a place where we honor Mother Earth and help to provide strength and love and support, just as if it was your own mother, because she is your own mother. And she's what sustains us. Our body comes from there. And when we pass, our body goes back. And, you know, all the elements, it's just an amazing, amazing time to be alive, and a really, really sad time to be alive. And so I invite you to reach into your heart when you're out on the land and listen and see what Mother Earth is asking you to do. I've asked and I've listened and I know what I need to do. So maybe it's the same, maybe it's different for you. But thank you for the question. It's a good question.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ruby. I'd like to speak to this for a moment too, because it feels so important. You know, when I think about these last many generations of really objectifying the body and making the body an object, you know, I think about how it can live inside of major world religions. I'll just say Catholicism, that the body's a sin. To me, it feels like that's part of the training us away from the earth. You know, our bodies are made of the earth and some stardust in there to make this whole thing work. So to me, this ability to somatically feel ourselves more deeply, to transform what emerges for us to transform, to keep following that leaning of like life moving toward life, I feel like invites us or prepares us to do exactly what Dr. Ruby said, which is listen to the earth, like make contact. And I know that I've been in a new phase of what feels like grief and helplessness around what's happening with the earth and climate. And you know, sometimes that'll throw me into like, okay, what other action can I take? But when I really linger inside of it, it feels like the grieving and the feeling the pain and staying connected to the distress and the beauty. I mean, it blows my mind that the earth keeps creating life. You know, I live here in the Bay Area, and it's been, you know, we're in a, as they call, a mega drought, and it's been so dry. And then about 3 weeks ago, it rained, and already everything is green. I'm like, oh, that is amazing. That's amazing. So it is noticing the grief and distress, and I think helplessness, which is part of what I've been working with, and then also continuing to notice the beauty and how life knows how to renew itself, and how do we individually and collectively support life renewing itself, and also continue to take collective action to stop the things that are destroying life. I do think it's a deep time of healing plus social action, and it probably has been for many generations. It just feels like we're in our generation, our time of doing that. But as we heal, I feel like our social action and how we play our role, how we do that can become different as we do more of our internal work. Yeah, I think that's all I want to add there.
Great. So there's a couple of questions here. And the first one is, how would I know if a trauma I feel is mine or one of my ancestors or even from elsewhere in the culture? And I would really invite you to look at the similarities between what you're experiencing or the conditions that you have, and if anyone else in your lineage has had those things. It's kind of like a doctor might look for genetic, you know, issues in previous generations. You know, we're like a limb on a tree of that family tree, and there's something that Daniel Siegel calls the neurobiology of we. And so you and your family system are connected through your genetics, through that kind of neurobiology and understanding and wisdom. And each of those branches is carrying something, and the roots go very deep. So you can lose people on those branches, but then new branches come, and it becomes kind of that everlasting tree. But the roots of it are even more important because they connect to all of these other trees in the community. And so if you can look at it that way, that you won't really know which ancestor unless they present themselves to you. And, that's something, your question is very good, and it's difficult to answer in the short run here. So I invite you to pick up my book, because that would help you. I also have a series of meditations. If you go to mybodymyearth.com and go to the store, there's a download of 12 meditations that I've done for somatic archaeology. It's $11. It's a download to your phone or computer, and that might be helpful for you too. And the other question we have here, Staci, is it common for us to relive our traumas in relationships where we feel safe? For example, having a present partner after many non-present partners, it's common to start to feel somatic sensations that may have been inaccessible in other relationships. Absolutely. Safety is the very first step to remembering. And, when your body is settled down, your whole neurophysiology changes. And being grounded and rooted is the precursor to opening up your limbic system and your amygdala, and where all of those memories live. So I would say, yes, Staci, do you have any feedback for that?
Sure. And then I might lean toward this question around, oppression, accountability, and that piece too. Maybe I'll put them both together. Yes, exactly what Dr. Ruby said. And I think one of the things, as we're kind of sorting through, if you're in a partnership where there's safety and there's connection and there's dignity, right? Someone is dignifying you, that a lot thaws out, a lot starts to thaw out from that ground. And I think one of the things to keep paying attention to is, as that gets stirred, to get support and be in practices that help that process through, so we don't project it onto our partner. So it's one of the complicated things that can happen, both with safe, close friendships or safe, close partnerships, especially intimate and sexual partnerships, is it can be confusing as the body's kind of thawing out or remembering or trying to process through, because there is a safe ground that will kind of toss it outward. That discomfort and pain is coming from a person who actually is very supportive. So it's a good time to get good support and also really be in that practice of like, what's mine, what's happening in me, what practices do I want to be in to love well and be loved well, which I always think of as lifelong practices. There is another question here I just wanted to pull, which is about advice for those of us who are experiencing tremendous amounts of grief, anger, hostility because of racism, homophobia, sexism, transphobia, right? That doesn't get accountability from those who are perpetuating it or in power. Okay, this is like it's such a big question, and I have a practical small answer and then a little bit bigger answer. One of the teachers who trained at GS for a long time, she used to, say, how do you heal in a war zone? And she didn't mean a literal war zone, but she meant at the interfaces of poverty and white supremacy and racism and homophobia. And, one of the things we really look at is, where are the places you experience and can keep resourcing your resilience? Where are the places that you and with others can put attention on mending and healing, right? The impacts of oppression. Where do we find our kind of groups and small pieces of community that want to be in purposeful practice together about empowering, supporting each other's agency? That piece is really essential. So we have a place and a small space in which to heal, build more agency, build more choice, orient toward our resilience or toward joy, in our practices and our relationships. In the big picture piece of it, I do, obviously, you can tell, invite people to get into and join organizations that are doing social change together, right? So it's like movements for social change, organizations that are running campaigns or transformative processes that you believe in, you want to put some of your energy inside of. I know there's a lot of polarization inside of progressive movements right now too, and there's so much positiveness happening. But that also can feel hopeful and be a place again to help change those broader structures when, in the long arc of history, social change takes a long time. Like shifting our economy takes a long time. And, when we can look at like an arc of social movements as at least 50 years per arc, and there's many of those, being in those deep healing spaces and practice spaces with folks you share vision and values with folks who also are committed to healing, and then participating in work together, that's much more about the longer view, I think, again, can leave us with more resilience and agency, when probably many of the people who are doing harm right now will not be accountable within this lifetime. And some of the systems that are doing harm, while they're also being changed, some of them might not also be accountable. Like, how long, again, is it taking the United States to be accountable for colonization and for slavery? It's a very long time. Yeah. Ruby, you want to come back? Do you see another question you want to move toward?
Yeah, we have about, 15 minutes left. I think I'm going to do a meditation. There's a lot of questions here. And they're all excellent questions. There was a quick one that I wanted to answer. So if you're raised by a non-biological parent, you still carry the DNA of your biological parent. So you don't really have a familial bond or a genetic bond with a step parent. And consequently, you'll pick up some of their behaviors or maybe their ideas or their attitudes, but you certainly won't have to carry them unless you have experienced emotional burdens through this person that you end up carrying forward. But the stories of those people is of those who are not genetically connected to us doesn't, there's no basis for it, because see, genetics connect person to person, right? The epigenetics, let's say the genetics are the train that connects you to your family. The epigenetics, epi simply means on top of. The epigenetics is the payload that train carries. And so the DNA carries all that epigenetic or emotional, behavioral, lifestyle choices, patterns, how it's all been set up in the past. That's what you inherit. And the genes can't change, but the epigenetics can change. You can shift your emotions, and then when you shift the epigenetics, your body starts to create that change. So let's just take a moment here. We're going to do one more practice before the end, and then we'll close out. So I'm going to invite you to stay in your chair or wherever you are. Put your feet on the floor. Feel your feet flat on the surface beneath you. And I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. And we're going to take in about a half a dozen deep breaths. So those breaths are going to be full belly breaths. But when we exhale, we're going to exhale all the way down through our feet, almost visualizing that our breath moves through the soles of our feet into Mother Earth. If you could just get through the building underneath you, use your visualization and do this breath 6 times. So breathe in. Exhale down. Breathe in. Settle in your body. Feel your feet. So this breath is breathe, ground through your feet, and settle. Settle in your bones. And one more time. Breathe. Ground and settle. And while you're in this place, I invite you to feel that top layer of the earth. In our tradition, the grass and everything that grows on the earth is like our hair. So imagine that grass is the hair of Mother Earth. Feel your hair. Feel her hair. And underneath that layer of hair is Mother Earth's skin. Feel her skin. Feel your skin. And underneath that are the rocks and the bones and the stones that keep Mother Earth's crust together. Just like our bones keep our form upright. So feel into your bones, feel into the rocks and stones of Mother Earth. And then go a little deeper. Underneath those stones is the aquifers and underground lakes. Mother Earth is 75% water, just like our bodies. So I invite you to feel the water in you. Feeling your organs, your blood, the way that water moves through your lymph system, circulatory system, your reproductive system. Feel that affinity with Mother Earth. And underneath those waterways are the sacred caves and the crystals and the stones that live inside the caverns. This is what we call the brains of Mother Earth. All these crystals record every experience that Mother Earth has had. If you've taken some of her brains, bury them again. Give them back because she needs her intelligence. Just like you wouldn't want someone taking part of your brain. Feel your brain, feel her brain. Then take in one more deep breath. And let your attention go all the way to the core of Mother Earth, to her center. The red, fiery magma, which is her heart. The beating heart of Mother Earth. I invite you to feel her rhythm. Boom, 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 boom. And let your heart align with her rhythm. Nice and slow, consistent. Your heart is her heart. Connect them, and you will always be resourced here. When you connect to Mother Earth's heart, thank her for her gifts and for her beauty, for her generosity, for her creation, for all of her ancestors. And give thanks. And fill your heart with love for this gift of life. And honor and worship this place as you would your own mother. You are part of this life. You are a child of this creation. Mother Earth's doing the best job she can to take care of you, to take care of us. So feel Mother Earth's body, your body. Make those connections. And then 3 deep exhalations. Again, exhaling down through your feet. We use the number 3 because it's the number of creation. The first one, the first breath is the seed. The second breath is the root. And the third breath is the flower or the leaf. Every time you breathe 3 times, it's a power of your own choice. So when you're ready, slowly open your eyes, come back. I try to answer a lot of your questions simply by doing that exercise. And it's from that centered place that you can begin to look back. You can become more familiar with your body, with what you're holding on to. You're always welcome to go to freedomlodge.org and ask. There's a place where you can submit questions, and I'll see those more directly. But for now, thank you for all our relations. Thank you, Staci.
Thank you. Thank you for the practice. Thank you. Thank you all for being here with us today. Thank you for your questions, and just for your good work and calling toward healing. If you want to find out more about generative somatics, you can go to generativesomatics.org or thepoliticsoftrauma.com, which is where you can find me more directly. And Dr. Ruby, it's been great to be with you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Staci. It was really nice to listen to you as well as to share. And I think it was a good combination. And I just want to thank our entire audience for opening their hearts and, like you said, having interest in this topic. It's really the wave of the future in healthcare. So we wish you all the best.
Yeah, be well, everyone. Thank you.
Aho, mitaka yase.